I can turn it up over here. Okay. Nope. No, those are the back ones. I'm not going to share the slideshow so they can just see us. I think yours is more. Yeah, exactly. Okay, 6 personal perspectives. We're just going to jump into it. All right, so you have your little manual provided from the office. They used to charge you for this, so congratulations. You got it for free. Kevin, will you read the first quote on the screen? And Carla, can you hear me? Yay. Okay. That's right. So page, I don't know, this one. I don't think it has a number. Has the definition of 6 personal perspectives. So the 6 personal perspectives are a foundation of Keller Williams. And it's a, hope you can hear me, Carla, because I can't tell if the mic is working. It's not? How can you tell? Oh, okay. I'll just hold it like Lee right there. All right. Okay. So what is the difference between those who achieve at the highest level and those who don't seem to accomplish much? After thorough research and questions, Gary Keller discovered that high achievers have these 3 basic attributes: their mindset, their attitude, and their approach to life. So little intro on me. I think you all know who I am at this point, but maybe not. I've been a realtor for 10 years and I started in 2013. So it was kind of a great time to start because everyone had kind of gotten out and it was revamping. And I started at Keller, so I didn't really go anywhere else. And I started here. And I am always in the top 10 of the office. So we have 330 agents. I'm somewhere in the top 10. Today I'm like number 4. It's very exciting. It's the highest I've ever been. Anyway, so I love this class because you can take this concept and put it everywhere in your business. It's not just, or in your life, it's not just business. We'll skip Gary's quote and we'll go to next page, page 9. This is where you get to add your notes. So the 6 personal perspectives are committing to self-mastery, committing to the 80-20 principle, moving from E to P. There we go. Making being learning-based the foundation of your action, removing your limiting beliefs, and being accountable. So we're going to deep dive into each of these 6 topics. There we go. Now they're all up so you can read them. Hi, Molly. So I will be doing 1, 3, and 5, and Kevin will be doing 2, 4, and 6. I like to change it up between the 2 of us. So then you get different stories and excitingness. So before we jump into the actual perspectives, we want to talk about 3 things you would like to accomplish in life. So again, this is not just a business class, this is life. And there was a pre-video that I didn't send you that you're supposed to watch. And essentially, the guy was on the plane that crashed into the Hudson River. And there was that moment of panic of like, this is it. Like, what I've accomplished is what I've accomplished. And he had that sense of remorse and regret. So his big takeaway was that he was going to do what he wanted to today. He wasn't going to put it off because you never really know when your last day is. So I want you to take a couple minutes on page 11 and write down 3 things you would like to accomplish in life that you haven't achieved yet. It can be what you want to be, what you want to do, or what you want to achieve. Kevin, what do you want to be? I like it. Kevin, his wife just had a baby, like 6 weeks, 5 weeks, 4 weeks. Go find rocks. That's so sad. I love that. No pressure. It's okay. You have time because I have my part first. Does anyone want to share their challenge or what they want to accomplish in your life? Nice. Thank you. Oh, did you bring your book from last time? Nice. I love that. I like it. Be kinder. Cool. Anyone else?
So
Yes.
for me, I did work on health. So today, like, working to that.
Nice.
But about high school, I worked on
Real question is, where's home?
vineyard. So
Okay.
yeah.
That's still.
It's just a little uphill path. It was a good workout.
Yeah.
So it adds a little bit more to the cardio workout we're doing. So today to work on health. It just long story short. So I need something that runs my family. So I want to be the best health for my family. And I want to be able to, because I know balanced life might be kind of like overrated, but I want to have meaningful moments with my family. Like if it's not, 3 hours every night, at least it be something that's.
I like it. Anyone else? Viviana? I like it. Look at you guys all having good family goals. Okay, so we're going to do a reality check. So on page 13, we have this lovely flow chart. You can do this for any of the 3 goals on that page, or you can do it for business. Where we are coming into 3rd quarter, almost 4th quarter of this year, it'd be a good one for business. But kind of a reality check. So in the first bubble, you write, what is your goal? And then how are you doing on that goal? So if your goal is to be more kind, that's the goal. How are you doing on it? Then the next question is, how do you feel about it? And what will your future look like if you do not achieve that goal? To take some time to process through that. So while you're finishing up, I will share mine. So my goal this year was to close 48 transactions. I am nowhere near that. But how do I feel about it? I feel great because this year has been hard. The goal I set didn't necessarily have data behind it when I said it. It was like, oh, this would be a really cool number to hit. It was based off transactions per month, I believe. But I didn't really look at, oh, this market's hard. The last 6 months have been hard. Next year's not going to be any better. So I don't feel bad about not hitting that goal, and I'm going to, and then how will my future look? It really isn't going to impact my future because I'm going to close about what I closed last year, maybe a little bit more, but that in this shifted market feels like a win to me because sales are down 30% and I am not down 30%. So Gary Keller says in a market like this, doing more isn't necessarily the goal. Doing the same is the goal. Because if you can do that just by percentages, you'll have a higher market share as the market continues to grow. So the goal of a harder market is to just keep your market share versus, double, triple, whatnot. And it's okay to not, like, a lot of people don't like to set goals because if they don't hit their goals, they're super disappointed. And I used to be that way. I used to be like, I don't want to set my goal because if I don't hit it, I'm a failure and like very hard on myself. And now at this point, I can look back and be like, well, it's okay. So that's why I really like this flow chart, because how you feel and then really the ultimate impact is what's your future going to look like. And if it's not going to drastically affect your future, that's okay. If you set the goal to make a ton of money because you want to do something and now you can't do it, that's a different thing. But my goal was not money based, it was just transaction based. So what ahas do you have? And you'll notice in Keller classes, ahas are everywhere. The main factor is it's a way to take gold nuggets away from classes because we spend so much time in classes and there's so much kind of fire hose vibe to it. But if you can figure out an aha to take away and write it down, because writing down helps you remember things better, it makes your class more valuable. So anyone want to share their ahas before we jump in? Yes.
We all like well conceptualize how walking schedule and how so I'm like writing down like I need to do better at that. So primarily.
Yeah. Time blocking. That's one that's always preached and I'm like, it's so hard. But it's really not when you like, because mine simplifies. Mine's like first 3 hours of the day, this is what I'm doing. The rest of the day is open for my clients. As I break that by being here, but that's okay. Anyone else? Ahas? Okay. Okay. Yep. Yeah. So if you are making the same you made last year, you're doing great because sales themselves are down 30%. So if the whole market's down 30% and you stay where you're at, you're doing great. So the market's not affecting you, you're affecting what happens. Yeah, because it's painful, especially when some of us have had our best 2 years of our career in the last 2 years, and then to come back and be like, oh, how much of the market was of my sales was the market, not my skills. Anyone else before we go? Okay, we're gonna get into committing to self-mastery. So that was all the intro, and now you still get me because we didn't plan it well. I should make you do the intro next time. Ooh, musical number. I love it. Okay, so self-mastery is the possession of greater knowledge, skills, and habits that make you the master of you. So in the Outliers book, has anyone read it? Yeah. By Malcolm Gladwell. It's one I'd add to your list. And a tip for that is every time someone tells me to add a book to my list, I just put it in my wish list on Amazon, not on the app. Yes, Kindle or the one that reads to you. Yes, there we go. We'll get there. Yeah. So I add everything to my wish list. And then when I have credits available, I'm like, well, someone told me it was good, so I'm going to do it. Because if not, you end up losing the list. Or I also will, at the beginning of every manual that I write, I get like book recommendations and I'll just write down whatever books are recommended. So in the book, The Outliers, essentially there's tons of studies done, and that the scientific data is there's the low point, there's the high point, and then there's the bell curve where everyone kind of falls into the bell curve. And he studied why people fall into the extremes either way, where they're really, really good, really, really bad, and what characteristics show up in that space to end up to propel yourself to a better spot. One of my favorite stories in The Outliers talks about Canadian hockey and why some kids are doing really, really well and some are not. And the major factor they noticed is the kids who were born in January, because of school schedules and because of size in January, most of the team is born in January because at the time they start, when they're like 6 or 7, because our schools start in August, theirs start in January from age perspective. So if you're not 7 by the time you go to school, you don't go for the following year type thing. So those kids were developmentally bigger by the time they started school. They were further ahead because you all have little kids, right? You know that there's a big difference between 2 and 3, even though it's only 12 months. Once they become adults, it's not that big of a deal between an age difference, but at those years, it's a really big difference. So these kids were more coordinated, they had more skills, they were bigger, so they were the ones that were picked for the extra credit, the extra classes, the extra coaching in hockey, and that is why they succeeded. Like there was nothing them personally skill related, it was where they were developmentally. So the road to mastery is considered 10,000 hours of time on task. And that also comes from this book, that if you spend 10,000 hours on something, you'll truly become a master of it. And how much time are you spending mastering yourself and your emotions and the things that happen in your life? Because as it says at the bottom, it's a journey, not an event. Because a lot of times we get pumped and we're excited and we're like, let's do this, this will be great. And then you lose your personal motivation and stuff falls off. And self-mastery is putting in the pieces on page 19. Putting the pieces together to achieve your self-mastery. So on page 19, you have the workflow of it that has your goal, so the thing you want to master, and then your strengths and your weaknesses, because the more you know about yourself, the more you can build your goals around it. So for me, I got into real estate and it was very much call your database. You have to call them every quarter. You have to come up with reasons to call them. And I am a millennial and I don't like talking to people on the phone. So I was like, that's not going to work for me. So I built my whole business around not making phone calls. So what that looks like is I have to do a lot more marketing. Because the numbers are for every 12 people in your database, 1 should work with you and 1 should refer you to someone. But to stay top of mind with people where you're not making the phone call, it's a lot more events. It's a lot more postcards. It's a lot more emails, but I'm more comfortable with that. And so it is a little more cost intensive, where if I would just pick up the phone and call people, I'd be fine. My husband would love me to, but I don't want to. So here we are. I got off on a sport tangent. So you have your strengths and your weaknesses, and then making a plan. Okay. So with making a plan is how can you get past where you're at currently? So on your book, it says practice scripts, which we don't call them scripts anymore. They're conversations, because there's a lawsuit happening right now over scripts. Taking a class like BOLD, call your sphere of influence. Text, yeah. Yep. Because I don't know why, to tell you the truth. But they've now rebranded scripts to conversations. Keller Williams. We're huge. They like to sue us. But yeah, so I'm full of random knowledge. Yes. Keller Williams lawsuits. While we're talking about lawsuits, have you heard about? I'm kidding. Anyway, but I actually prefer conversations because that sounds more natural. Like, what are you going to say to someone? Because I get that question all the time. Like, what should I say? And at this point in my career, I've had enough conversations that it's not that hard to be like, oh, this is what I'm doing. But before I used to like, my husband works with me. I used to be like, hey, this is my situation. What should I do? And he'd be like, oh, do this or this. And it's really nice having someone outside of the problem to bounce ideas off of, because they're not emotionally invested into it. They're just like, oh, this seems logical. This seems logical. But this is what is great about Keller Williams, is there's so much opportunity. And one thing I don't think I realized until I had been here longer was there's office level stuff, which is fantastic, but that fluctuates based off of the crazy market. But then there's corporate international level stuff, and there is so much. Like there's masterminds, which I'll tell you a story about later, where you can go mastermind with people at a different production level. There's coaching, there's Bold, which we're not doing Bold this year, but we're doing, you're good. So like instead of Bold this year, we're doing
Boot camp. Boot camp.
I don't know how to move the cam.
You said boot camp.
Oh, boot camp. Thank you. Yes, so we're doing Shoney's boot camp instead of Bold, which is much cheaper. Bold's like $800. Boot camp's 50, like your money ahead. But there's so many opportunities, which again, we'll talk about later in the class of what you can be doing. So I'm going to skip the video because I'm probably going over on my time. Yep. So the exercise we're going to work on page 21 is on page 13. You wrote down your goal. Now I want you to think about 3 obstacles that might be hindering you from hitting that goal. And then we're supposed to discuss it with partners, but there's not enough people to do it. So we'll just openly discuss it if you're comfortable. If not, you don't have to. But write down your 3 obstacles to achieving your goal. Right? Takes it up a notch. We're just going to be like, now talk to your broker before you do anything that we are suggesting. There's our CTA. Not call to action. I guess it would be CYA. Yes, yes.
That would be cover your assets.
Right, your asset. Maybe you're just that loud. All right, so as you're finishing up that, next page has some questions. And again, back to the conversation of when I was brand new, I would just say, hey, Brady, this is my problem. He would solve it because he wasn't connected and didn't have all the minutia details that feel important, but they're not in the grand scheme. And it's actually, you end up doing this with Dean a lot, where you'll be like, this is my problem. And he's like, okay, who do you represent? What's the scenario? Where you're like, well, this happened and this happened and this happened, and that you give too much detail. So if anyone wants to share with the group what strengths you feel that you have that will help you overcome the obstacles that you're facing. Or if anyone wants to share what their obstacles are.
So the exercise, doing good on the exercise aspect, but the dieting part, probably, you know, I had a slow gender be like, I'll work out any diet I want to have. That's not for me. So I was gonna say, wow, man. No. it's a pride of me. So thank you for that. So yeah, it's definitely I do it. So it's like
And what strengths do you feel that'll help you overcome that obstacle?
So I'm pretty like routine. So if I could get like meal prep and I do things like that, I I just have to get it going. Like I have to just be organized to start it, and then I think once I do it, then it'll be fun. Yeah, that's right.
So then the next question with that, if you're okay, continuing, is what weaknesses might hinder you from overcoming that?
Man, saying no to sweets, like it's so hard.
Yeah.
Last night my wife came home with cinnamon roll, orange cinnamon roll. Like, yeah, we got this with a whole like thing bit. I was like,
Mm.
yeah. So yeah, that kind of stuff. I did it.
Yeah. So the question is number 4, are the obstacles immovable or movable? Sorry.
Well, I have to stay married. No, no, I think it is. It's more of self-mastery.
Yeah. Well, and this is a space where bringing in helps. So letting her know this is my goal. Please help support me. Because when your spouse knows your goal, they can help you be like, should you? And then there's also a level of your spouse can't be your accountability partner. Like there's many times with my husband that I'm like, you cannot critique me. You just have to tell me I'm great and amazing. And I'll go elsewhere to let someone else tell me what I'm failing at. Because I can't have him tell me that I'm doing something wrong. Okay. Any ahas before we go to the 80-20 principle? No ahas. Yes. Yep. You get the microphone. We'll just play switch, unless you want to hold it, but you'll need.
Hear myself resting. I'm sorry about what you probably just heard, Dean. I hope your ears are okay. This is going to be fun. Okay, so hello, welcome. Because 9:30 is when it should have started. We're all on your team, but it did start at 9. But like any reasonable person would have started it at 9:30, so that's a reasonable assumption. Did you pick 9 o'clock? I thought 9 was foisted on us, but if Becca chose it, then let's all point. No, these usually do start at 9. I'm just not a morning person. Morning people rule the world. They took over at some point, and we just let them, guys. Even though we're awake at night, and they're not. And we just let it happen. Let's all turn to page, where's in the step 2, commit to the 80-20 principle. Page 27. We have a little story in the newspaper 3-dimensional graphic here that I would love someone to read for me. Could I get a reader? Thank you. I only need the first paragraph. Give it to me.
In the 1940s, quality control manager Dr. Joseph M. Juran documented a life-changing universal principle
Oh, that tracks. Dean, now you can listen in.
that he called the vital few and trivial many. The idea was that a relatively small percentage of your efforts lead to the vast majority of your results. He attributed some of his findings to the statistical work of the Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto, who had observed that 80% of the wealth in his country was owned by 20% of the population. As fate would have it, that broadly embraced principle came to known as Juran's law, but as
Not as Juran's
Pareto's
law, yeah.
principle. These
Pareto.
days, we simply call it the 80-20 principle.
Yeah. First of all, I love that weird, like there has to be some kind of odd history there where there's sort of that spiteful call out. It's like, it's weird that they didn't call it Juran's law and named it after the guy who found it first. That's crazy. But this is actually bonkers, the Pareto principle, which if you Google it, it is still called the Pareto principle. I'm not sure what the 80-20 thing is. But this is nuts, and it has been found in virtually every field of study. It is a massively accurate way to predict outcomes in any system. And so some examples, 20% of criminals commit 80% of crimes, 20% of drivers cause 80% of accidents, 20% of factories produce 80% of pollution, 20% of products that drive 80% of sales, and then 20% of realtors control 80% of listings. Every system sees this kind of thing. I shouldn't say every, now someone's going to find an exception, but this is a bizarrely broadly located principle. And it's absolutely bonkers. So the Pareto principle is enormously powerful, and we're going to talk about it in context of how we can use it, leverage it to make our lives more efficient and to get better results. Because what we're looking at in the Pareto principle is that 20% of the stuff we do every day is going to produce 80% of our income. And therefore 80% of the stuff we do is going to produce 20% of our income. So if you make $100,000 a year as a realtor, which is, I don't know if you've done any business planning clinics. Who has done a business planning clinic? Okay, well, when you go to, I'm sorry, what is your name? Scarlett? I love that name. I'm Kevin. Hello. I know everyone else's name, so I think. Bibiana. Lori. Not Laura. Lori. Okay, then I do know everyone else's name. So when you go to a business planning clinic, which I strongly endorse, and they're going to start pretty soon, they usually happen in Q4, they totally don't tell you to put $100,000 when they tell you what your income should be in the top line. They totally don't tell you that. It's kind of socially engineered that way, but you should put whatever you want your income to be. But for argument's sake, we're going to say that you do respond to that, because I think $100,000 is a very respectable income for a starting realtor. That's an excellent first, second, third year as a realtor. If you made $100,000 as a realtor, to put this in perspective, then you were working 2 jobs. For 32 hours a week, you were working an $8 an hour job. And for 8 hours a week, you were working $120 an hour job. The Pareto principle, if we apply it like that, we want you to be working your 120 hours a week, an hour job all the time, right? Or at least as much time as you possibly can. So we're going to do an object lesson. It's a lesson using object. This is going to be fun because my wife is a rock collector and she has these beautiful rocks that I used for this last time, and I left them at home. Take that, wife. So these are from the front area, like just right out there. And then on top of that, Bibiana saw what I was doing and came and handed me this jar. This has not been tested with the dimensions of this jar. So this is going to be super fun. So let's talk about, I want someone who's willing to be like 30% vulnerable with me. Okay, Scarlett, tell me something that's important for you to accomplish right now, just in your day-to-day life. It could be work-related, doesn't have to be. Yeah, why is that?
Because I want to spend time, I'm going to be vulnerable. So I want to spend time with the Lord and just me and him time.
Okay, love that.
You know, in prayer, meditation, and journal, working on myself before I come to work.
I absolutely love that. So we're going to call this, if you don't mind, I'm going to sort of generalize that as like spiritual communion. Is that an okay? Okay. So this rock is going to represent spiritual communion. I'm going to use Bibiana's jar. It's not going to work and it's going to be hilarious. I'm really excited. Okay. Then what's something else that's important? This can come from Scarlett or anyone else. What's something else important to get done today, tomorrow, this week? Oh yeah, spend time with our kids. Okay, yeah. So this rock, smaller than spiritual communion, that's not on purpose. This will represent time spent with our family, our wife who keeps shoving carbs into us. Okay, contacting, like doing our contacting for our real estate business. So I'm gonna call this rock prospecting. I don't know why I'm trying to stack them. That's not part of this. Okay, and then we need a fourth one because this was very carefully measured to this jar that these have definitely been in before. What's one more thing that's important to us? Doesn't have to be work related, can be work related. Sleep. Oh, sleep. Oh, sleep. How I've missed you. I have a 4-week-old at home. That's the context of that comment. Okay, and then this is stuff. Okay, this is stuff that we got to do. This is like, I need to get the car fixed. I need to go grocery shopping. And amazingly, I find in my life, and I suspect you guys can sympathize with this stuff always manages to get done. I always go grocery shopping. I always take the car to get washed. I always walk the dog. So we get that into our day. Let's have a volunteer. No vulnerability required, just basic spatial reasoning. And this is grits. I stole Molly's breakfast for the next week. Right? Yeah, no, we're gonna feast on these as soon as we're done, as soon as they've had rocks in them. All right, I need a volunteer. Come on up, Sam. All right, Sam, so we're gonna have you fit those really important tasks into your day that's been filled with this stuff. Yeah, and maybe you can. The grits are kind of soft. Yeah, that guy's gonna win. Yeah, well, see you later, God. We got God and children in there, kind of. That's actually a shockingly good performance. All right, but we breached the top, so we're gonna call this a failure for the purposes of the activity. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can't get the lid back on. Will we be able to get the lid back on if we do it rocks first? Well, we'll see. Okay, now what we're gonna try. Here, I'm gonna use my hands as a funnel, and you're gonna get it into the 7-Up cup.
I don't know how old you are. Do you know Mr. Wizard?
No.
Okay, it was an old show on Nickelodeon. So it kind of feels like we're doing like an experiment or something.
Yeah, we're learning about funnels. Can't spell. It's like if you imagine porridge or like oatmeal, it's like a savory oatmeal. They're from the South. It's like you do corn, you pulverize it into a meal, then you cook it, you add butters and bacon. It's really good. A little bit carby. You can't. I have done brown sugar. I don't like sweet grits, but it is a thing you can do. Okay. So now what I want you to try for me, Sam, is put in your big rocks first.
Okay.
Will this work? I mean, with how close he got. Oh yeah, putting that in flat. Putting the biggest rock in first was smart, I think. You might have been able to get one under it, but I'm not sure. I think this is gonna work. Now get your stuff in there. Go wash the car. That stuff. I think you're gonna pull it off. Even though we never tested it on this jar. Even on untested jars. Amazing. All right. Oh yeah. Get your lid. You earned this.
Oh, there it goes.
I like the cloud of the cloud of grit that shot out of it as you closed it. I really wish I'd recorded that, actually. I have regrets. Okay, so one thing that I want to be clear, and something that I didn't understand when I first took this class, no one's saying you shouldn't go grocery shopping and wash the car and drop your kids off at school and stuff like that. Obviously, those things need to happen, or your car will be filthy, you'll starve, and your kids will be uneducated Neanderthals. But what we are saying is that you need to do the things that are important to you first, or they won't happen. I can tell you from personal experience, I have tried it both ways. If you don't do the big things first, they don't happen. Does anyone want to disagree with me on that? We can have a debate. We'll put up podiums. We'll say, you are dumb. That's what I thought. So when I say time blocking, do you know what I'm talking about? Do we need to talk about time blocking quick?
I would like, that's something I need to work on.
Okay, do you know what it is? Yeah, so time blocking is saying in advance that I'm going to set aside, you talked about a 3-hour block. like a 3 hour block to do X. So I liked actually Scarlett gave an example. She wakes up at, I believe you said 5:30, and the way you put it was spends time with the Lord. I don't specifically know what that means, but I don't need to. That's not important. But that would mean that's a time block, right? From 5:30 till 6:30, I'm praying, I'm reading scripts, I'm doing whatever that means to you. And if you know in advance that you are doing that, that is immensely powerful. The other thing that's immensely powerful is do the stuff that you're hesitant to do first. Eat the frog. And so for many realtors, possibly all realtors, in a professional context, that is doing your prospecting, doing your calls. Nobody likes that in my experience. Some realtors say they do, and I guess I won't question them. But starting your day with the thing you don't want to do will make the rest of your day amazing. It's the cold shower principle, except I think that specific principle is stupid, because doing something purposeful that has meaning that you don't want to do is much more powerful than just pointlessly torturing yourself. In my opinion, if you love cold showers, good for you, more power to you. I'm not going to fight you on it.
I mean, taking a cold shower, 'cause I did it for like 8 months, and it was something I didn't want to do, but also the reward and the benefit of getting out of that cold shower after 60 seconds, I knocked out. And so remember that. But it was just like, okay, I'm ready now. I'm ready. I'm happy. Thank goodness I'm out of that. So there's so many benefits.
I'll take your word for it, Scarlett.
Shower, you want to turn it on, it's a hot cat. Like, oh, you can turn it on a minute before you get in it, you know.
So you kind of were living the cold shower principle. We had an issue with our plumbing. This has nothing to do with helping you advance as realtors, where our shower would be scalding hot at first, and then it would actually cool down. It was an issue with a junction thing in our thing. And so we called the plumber and fixed it. Cool story. Moving on. Let's go to page 31. We're going to do something called an extreme Pareto. This is a great way to sort of narrow in our focus on one of our goals and cut the chaff on what we think is necessary to what we're doing versus what we should actually be focusing in on. So first, let's talk about much to do about nothing. Sam, are you feeling reedy?
Sure.
Cool. Would you read that that paragraph, that call out?
Well, do lists serve as a useful collection of our best intentions. It also
Tyrannize is how I would say it.
for trivial, unimportant stuff that we feel obligated to get done. Because it's our own list, achievers operate differently. We have an eye for these things. Left is the raw state. Left in the raw state as a simple inventory to-do list can easily lead you astray. The first thing on your list is just the first thing you thought of. To-do list inherently lacks the intent of success. Long hours spent checking off to-do lists and ending the day with a full trash can and a clear desk having nothing to do with success. Instead of to-do list, we need a success list, a list that is purposely created around extraordinary results. To-do lists tend to be long, successful lists are short. One pulls you in all directions, the other aims you in specific directions. If your to-do list contains everything, then it's probably taking you everywhere, but where do you really want to go?
Okay, so I want to ask you a question about this then. So in this context, stuff like washing your car, getting the groceries is not likely to make it onto your success list. So what's being said here? What does this mean?
That for me, like it said, if I was to make a list of things I need to get done, whatever came to the top of my mind, I decided to do probably watch things that are goal oriented and not these but things. And so for me, that would be, I mean, before looking at it, but having the bigger goal in mind and smaller goals, but just be purposeful with the list instead of being like, oh, I haven't, shaved it.
Yeah. We'll get into this even a little bit more, but essentially, if it's on your to-do list, your first question should be, can I safely ignore this forever? If the answer is yes, ignore it forever. Can I outsource this? Is this something my spouse would happily do? Is this something I could cheaply hire someone to do? That's depending on where you are financially and in your career, that's an option to look at. And then the success list is not saying this is what you should be doing with every second of your time. It is saying these are your big rocks, right? Don't convince yourself. I mean, groceries can become a big rock if you ignore them for long enough. But it's saying don't convince yourself that unimportant chaff is important. Don't convince yourself that grits are rocks. Perfect. I'm a brilliant teacher, guys. Let's go to the next page. This is probably my favorite activity that we're going to do today. On page 13, you wrote down a goal. Write it down again in the top box here. I will give you 15 seconds. Scarlett, you can have 25 seconds because I don't think you wrote down a goal. So. Yeah, oh yes, this does not have to be business related. And if you don't have a goal in mind, feel free to write, make $100,000 because that is, I make fun of it, but it's a perfectly worthy goal. Throw grits on the ground. Please don't tell Nova Leaf. It can be. The only thing what will make this work is if this goal is genuinely important to you, whatever that means. Okay, that's probably been 15 or 25 seconds. So now I'm going to be less of a jerk and I'm going to give you 3 minutes. And I want you to write that to-do list, things that you are doing or could be doing that would bring you closer to that goal or make that goal a reality. I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes, so it's not a made up number. Go for it, right? I've noticed. You're a good person, Becca. You're a good person in one very specific context, in all others evil. Right? Because we still have the 411. Because E to P is almost vacant. So I am going to hand it off to you. That way I can feel like I only took a half hour. Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, it does kind of, this course front loads quite a bit. I think it's because if anyone needs to leave early, always. Because we say, hey, do your time block from 9 to 11. Oh, by the way, all our classes take place in that time block. Okay, 10 seconds. Well, actually 7. Okay, I suspect a lot of you have already read ahead and possibly done the third thing. Okay, so one thing I want you to think about before we do the third part of this activity really, really quick is when I talk to people about this, I find some people find this mindset very motivating and some people find it very demotivating. So in advance, I'm giving you permission to completely ignore the next chunk of things I say. For me, it is very helpful to be objective and harsh in how I judge my schedule. And so what I'll do is I'll set for like a day, this is the thing that has to happen today. If it doesn't happen today, I failed today. And specifically, when you're picking whatever your goal was, right? If your goal was make $100,000, if your day did not bring you measurably closer to that goal, I want you to consider that day was wasted. You did not do your job that day. That day was thrown in the garbage can. If you heard that and went, I hate that, fine, throw it away. It doesn't work for some people. I'm comfortable with that. Some people take cold showers and like it for some reason. Scarlett. Okay. Fair enough. You did not say you liked it. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do is take this stuff on your list and circle the one thing that will have the most impact getting you closer to your goal. And then write it into that final box. Is anyone comfortable sharing what they've written? Go for it, Sam.
So for the diet exercise,
Love it.
list, I put meal prepping, ask others for help or let them know that I'm doing it.
Love it.
Just say no to sugar, carbs as much as I can.
Mhm.
Specifically sodas. Biking to the office, exercise part. I'm doing really well on like going to the gym, but biking to the office will be a good one. And then no eating, after eating. And then continue to increase my workout as I continue to do it. And the one thing that I took from all of this is meal prepping would be the 80 for me.
Love that.
Because if I do that, then it sets in motion everything else. Like, hey, this is my meal, it's pre-planned, I'm gonna eat this, and that's what it's gonna be, and that's how it's gonna happen. Once that becomes a routine, I think everything else falls.
I really, really like that. In fact, I'm probably stealing meal prepping, so I think it's a good idea. Anyone else would like to share? Okay.
So one of my long-term goals is to be healthier in general. So I was in a class and, in contact, like, what's the one thing you can do? And my husband and I have been doing yoga, and we're like, if you go for 4 months, then we'll go now, and we'll go. And so that was the one thing. Like, I needed to go like yoga now to make the next step happen. And so it can be a one thing that's checked off if you never have to do it again. But that way, it's just that next step.
Yeah.
So I like the quote at the bottom. Is what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, every step is easier or unnecessary?
Any other thoughts? So there's something I read recently that is fundamentally broken about the way and I think most people set goals. Is if we set, for example, the goal, I want to make $100,000 in a year. It's very easy to say, well, okay, so I currently have a fitness goal as well. So I actually want to use that because that's very real to me at the moment. It's very easy to picture how happy I'd be if I had a flat tummy and I could run around and go on very long hikes and do anything I want. Of course, that's nice to visualize, right? But something that's broken about the way I visualize it is I visualize the success state, the end state, not the struggle. And I read a book that sadly I can't say the title of in a professional setting, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. You don't pick goals. You don't pick outcomes. You pick struggles. And so I don't get to pick having a flat tummy and being able to do whatever I want with my body. I get to pick saying no to carbs. I get to pick working out every day, doing the stuff that I really don't want to do, but is the necessary absolute intermediate step between me and having the things I want. You don't pick what your income is going to be. You pick what you're going to do to get that income. You don't pick what your relationship with God or your family is going to be. You pick what you're going to do to get those relationships. That was transformative for me. And I think this is a very real way of, I didn't write anything, sorry, this is my instructor copy. I have done this activity, I swear. I should put gibberish on here so it looks like I've been doing it with you. But you pick struggles, not outcomes. Bye. Of course you need the mic. Oh, I should have asked for ahas. Give your ahas to Becca. You have 2 more minutes of my time.
Okay, yeah, give me your ahas from. I like it. It's a good aha, because it's very true. And when you're setting your goal, you're like, do I want to do that?
Yeah, exactly.
And if you don't make that your goal. Okay, so we just on the fly changed the schedule. So we will come back to the 411 because I want to give it more time. But we're going to go to page 49, which is the concept of moving from E to P. Boom. Okay, moving from E to P. So E to P is a concept of E is entrepreneurial, P is purposeful. Everyone has a natural ceiling of achievement where they are super successful up into a certain point. Every single person, no matter who you know, think of the most successful realtor you know personally. And I say personally because then you actually know a little bit more about their stuff. They will have a natural ceiling of achievement. And the only way to break through it is being purposeful. I'm going to draw. So we see it in realtors' careers all the time. So they get their license, they do really well, they hit a ceiling, they fall back down, they do better, they hit the ceiling, fall back down, and just kind of cycle over and over and over. And to get purposeful is to find tools or systems that will help you break through this ceiling and push through to the next level. So glass ceiling is another way to visualize it. And on the first page, it has a good visual of it. And it's talking about what you can do to break through your ceiling. Yeah. And the big one I like is systems and tools. And if you've been with Keller for a minute, they recently have really been focusing on different people's systems and their tools and how to just duplicate what they're doing. And one of the tools that they have is the 411. So now I'm going to go back. Oh, as I fix my hair. So now we're going to go back and go more in depth into the 411 and what it is. So it's on page 39. Actually, we're page 37. And then page 39 has a blank version of it. So what the 411 is it's your goal annually, then monthly, and then broken up into 4 weeks. So it's 1 year goal, 1 month goal, and 4 weeks. So when I was brand new, the agent who helped mentor me and brought me to Keller had me do this. And it was super beneficial because there's so much you have to do. Like at this point in my career, I've done it. It's kind of dialed in. I'm always improving it. But like the initial get your website started, figure out your CRM, figure out your business cards, your sign, your branding, your marketing, your logo, all the things, it's overwhelming. And it's all important. It's all part of your 20%, but some of it's more important at different times. So this really allows you to break down your life into a way that makes sense. So you have your annual goal. And the thing I love about this is it gives you your job, your business, your personal finance, and your personal. So the biggest difference between your job and your business, and this is one of those aspects that a lot of people struggle with, is your job is selling real estate. That is your job. Your business is a real estate business that's generating business, generating leads, and you have two. And if you're bad at your business, you'll never get to do your job. So it doesn't matter how well you know the contract, how great you can negotiate, how good you are at showing homes. If you cannot generate business, no one will know. Because unfortunately, consumers think we're all the same. Like they're like, you're licensed, I like you, let's go. They have no idea. They figure it out, and that's why repeat and referral is so bad in business. But in the initial, they don't know. So you have your job, which is getting it done, but you got to spend your time on your business. So this one has it broken down of the job: 24 listings sold, 18 buyers, 60 quarterly listings, 150 listing appointments. This is a mega agent, which mega agent is 10 million or above in volume. So like that's feels like a lot. So it doesn't need to be that. And then your business. So the reason this is broken up on business side is they have buyer's agents on their team. So the buyer's agents are doing 76 buyer leads, 24 listings, 2 new projects, GCI, net profit. Most of us are solo on a team, just so they aren't going to be these crazy. And then personal finance, super important, because our pay schedule is as hard as it is. We can go months and months without making money. Making sure that you are coming up with a system to be on top of your finances, repaying loans, stuff like that, super important. So if anyone ever wants an audit, I'd be happy to, not licensed, not professional, but if you're like, I don't know where to start, I'd be happy to sit down with people. And then personal, this is, so for this one, they have reading books, lose 15 pounds, complete a course in conversational Spanish. That's fun. But this can be anything you want. And I love it because it's more rounded. Like the classes are very much real estate because we do real estate, but you have options to be more rounded. So then it takes those annual goals and breaks them down into monthly goals. So monthly, they have to do 5 listings, take 5 listings, sell 2, put 2 buyers into escrow, put 3 buyers, contract close, 15 listing appointments, lead generate 3 hours a day, prospect 3 hours a day, and all things business. So they're going to refine their follow-up system, have 4 buyer specialist closings, hire new buyer specialists, 60,000 GCI, develop an investor farm strategy, teach Ignite classes. Personal finance, they're going to purchase an investment property and make a loan payment. And personal, they're going to read Shift, go to the gym twice a week, research local colleges. So you can kind of see how they broke that down. They're like, I want to read 1 to 2. So they're taking the abstract, refining it. I'm going to read this book. They want to lose 15 pounds. So they're going to go to the gym. And then they want to learn Spanish. They're going to find somewhere they can learn Spanish. And then it has it broken down by week. So when I did this, the big one that I just kept pushing off was my website. Because I was like, I don't really care about my website. And it took me a long time to finally get my website up and functioning. But I had 1 week I was researching my website. The next week I was talking to different providers of websites, scheduling the consultations. And then I had committed by the end of the month to have someone picked out for that. So I could come look at my 411 and be like, okay, what am I doing this week? Is it on my calendar? Is it time blocked? So I can make sure it's happening. And that's, so with this one, they have their week of attending 5 listing appointments, close 1 buyer. And all the activities they've been doing for months and months has led them to this point. So it's not like they wake up 1 week and they're like, I'm closing a buyer this week, because as we know, the sales cycle is 90 days. So 90 days ago, they met a buyer, got them under contract, contract close, worked their way through it, but kind of breaking it down into bite-sized manageable pieces. So 411 is a great one. I'm not going to have you do it because it will take too long. But on page 39, yes. I would do both. So your job is showing homes. So your job will be like, I need to make sure I'm out showing homes. Your business is, I need to get that marketing campaign set up. So it's kind of 2 separate pieces. So like my day today is insane. I'm teaching this class, and then I'm going to a lunch with a lender to review an assumption package. And then I'm going to something for my daughter's school. actually my son's. And then I have a final walkthrough, then I have a listing-ish appointment, and then I have a showing. They're all vitally important. None of them are necessarily more important, but the final walkthrough is more immediate money. Like we're closing, I'm gonna get paid. The listing-ish appointment, I went on the actual appointment 2 months ago. They want to review paperwork before we sign. So also important, future money. My kids are super important, so got to make that happen. But there's kind of that 80-20, like it's all important and it's just a stressful day, which I'll end up doing less. Well, actually tomorrow's crazy too. Saturday, I'll probably do nothing Saturday to recover from everything. But you need to have all of that built in. Another example is I have a client event next week. And so this week I need to post about the client event to get more people to sign up, to get more contact information. So I did that like late last night because I've been slacking on getting it marketed. And then I also posted it like 2 weeks ago. So like I'm working through it, but if it's not here, you're relying on your natural skill to get it done, where here is more purposeful, pushes you through it. So I won't make you do one, but this is a great one to do. And you end up doing the monthly every single month where you're like, okay, this month, this is what I'm focusing on. And then as you get everything kind of figured out, then you start focusing more annually. Like I remember one year I did a movie and it was like, I'm going to do a movie. I call the theater. I'm like the last person who can book it. And it's like 6 weeks out. At this point, when I do movies, I know I'm doing it. Like we'd start our business planning in November. And I know if I'm doing a movie next year in November. So it's planned, it's scheduled. But I couldn't have done that when I was brand new because I was like, I don't know what I should be doing, what I should be focusing on. So it kind of takes time to build up your processes and what you want to do. And like just barely, I called my husband. I was like, hey, I want to add an event for next year. And he's like, good, I don't want to do it this year. But he was worried I was going to add it this year. So then from there, we go to page 41, just because I want to read this part. So you have all these things that you want to do and you would like to do, and a lot are important and some aren't. And you need to, the key to successful time blocking is to make sure they're there. But the bold law at the bottom says, if it's not in your schedule, it doesn't exist. And if you are not putting it in your calendar, and this was one I fought for a really long time because it's effort to put stuff in your calendar, and calendar is not always accurate, but it's a whole lot easier to not double book yourself when it's in your calendar. You can be like, oh, I'm already committed at this time, that time. So if you're like, I can't do this, something else has happened, the theory is if you erase it, you have to replace it. So if you're like, I'm not going to do my final walkthrough today because I just can't make it happen, you need to do it tomorrow. And like you're not going to get paid if you're not doing your activities. So it helps motivate what's important to you. And then we're going to skip to page 45 and we're going to talk about how to protect your time block. So another book recommendation is The One Thing. And the synopsis of the book is one thing is always more important than everything else. And if you get that one thing done and accomplish it, you've had the successful day, as Kevin was suggesting. But sometimes you have to build out a plan to be successful in your one thing. So it talks about these 4 steps, which is building a bunker, find somewhere. So in this context, they're talking about prospecting. So you build your bunker, find somewhere that works to work that takes you out of the path of disruption and interruption. Store provisions. So essentially go to your office, lock your door, put glass or the stuff in front of your door so people can't see you're in there. Some people have not turned on their light. Like Johnny oftentimes does not turn on his light because he doesn't want people to know he's in there because they'll come bug him. Storing provisions. If you have drinks and snacks on hand, you're not going to get up and go walk around and get distracted. Sweep reminds, turn off your phone, shut down your email, exit your internet browser, so you're focusing 100% on prospecting. I'm on 45. Yep. No, you're good. I've been slowly jumping through it. So some people prospect on normal phones and they give their cell phone to their assistant, so they cannot be answering questions. So when you're like calling realtors and they're not answering, there's a chance that you're doing that. Or they're going to a movie in the middle of the day, that also. But treat it like, yes. But treat it like that. Like if you were going to a movie, what would you do? Would you have your phone on? No. Would you have it on vibrate? No. You would turn it off so you're not getting distracted. That's kind of the attention you need to give your prospecting. Downfall for me is most of my prospecting is social media, so I have to be on my computer. And then enlist support. This one's huge. Talk with other people, let them know your plans so they're not disrupting, especially if you work from home. That's a really hard space where people are coming in and going and coming. So just coming up with a plan like that. So, beautiful. Okay, so now we're going to go to page 51, which is break through the ceiling. Oh, I'm doing a terrible job at keeping up with my slides.
Well, I mean, this is, now the slides are caught up.
True. There we go.
So hard.
I'm doing wonderful. Okay. So this is another tool you can use to help you in the process. So this is the 5 steps to getting purposeful. So focus, write down your goal, focus on the 20%. So again, 80-20% principle, focus on that. Find strategic options. How can this be done? Are there different ways to do this? So I love using the team leaders as a resource to be like, who is accomplishing this at my level? Who else should I go talk to? Like, I'm not going to reinvent everything. I'm just going to find out who's doing it and how to duplicate. So it's, and Shoni knows who's at your production. He can pull up the lists and just kind of duplicate what they're doing. So then 3 says follow models and systems. So go to trainings that teach you how to get what you want and identify people or mentors who have done that. So I kind of talked about that. So Mega Camp just happened and they had a ton of people on stage and they went through and they said, this is what I do, this is how I do it. And they gave 1 page of like the breakdown of their business. I think on the hot links page has a link to all of them right now that you can go see what someone's doing with open houses, what they're doing with circle prospecting, like anything that you're like, I'm interested in this, you can go to the best source of how to get that done. And then installing the system. So your time blocking, your checklists, and then test to make sure the system works. Because if the great quote for CRMs is the best CRM is the one you're going to use. So don't spend all this time and be like, I'm going to buy Chime. It's $1,000 a month. It's the one I love. And then don't use it. Like just find one you'll use. So for the longest time, mine was spreadsheets. And then now it's Command and I use it and it has flaws, but it works and it's free. So I'm a fan of that. And then being accountable, which is keeping track of your 411, measuring what you're doing and having an accountability partner. So you can do that with someone else in the office. You can do that with a coach, depending on your production level. There's MAPS coaching, stuff like that. So I think my next slide is ahas. What ahas do you have from going E to P? Yes.
Time blocking during your prospect. For me, I don't know if anyone else, when we first came to this industry, is coming from an industry that was so constrained on what you could do versus like, you can do what you want. It's been a little bit of like trying to fine tune what's the best.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way getting around it. A schedule is still the best thing. Like, that's the reason why every other way is but I think identifying like, removing distractions for 3 hours or however
I love that. One of my favorite things about real estate is you are paid as hard as you're willing to work. And one of my least favorite things about real estate is you are paid as hard as you're willing to work. So some days it's like, great, I'm killing it, making a ton. Other days I'm like, crap, I did not work today. Yeah. And it shows up every single day. So it's a love-hate. Okay, Kevin, I can teach you about make learning based. Oh, Mike.
Who has done virtual reality? Like who's put on a headset and played a game or gone on a tour, done an exercise program, or have you guys done any of that before? Okay, yeah, tell me about what you did at Disneyland.
Go around the world. I don't even know what it's called. It's been like 20, 30 years. But
What?
yes, so you go on, get on the
You're talking about the one where you're in the swing and they strap you in and it's like the huge IMAX thing. Okay, that is very cool. And that was a good answer. So there's these new VR headsets that come out. You can all brag about this if you want, that you know me. I am actually one of the first people to use the consumer-facing VR headsets. I have a friend who is a game developer, and then the game service Steam sent out early headsets, the Vives, to the game developers. He let me play it and some of the early alpha stuff. That is actually how I found out that I have a fear of large underwater creatures, because there's a thing where you do, so in VR, especially in the early days, there was concern that putting a VR headset on disorients your brain, which it does, that is correct. Because your brain can't really grasp what's happening, because it really feels like you're just somewhere else now. And there's one where you just sit there and you're underwater in a shipwreck and a whale swims by, and it scared the snot out of me. Nothing happens. It's not intended to be scary. You're just standing there underwater and a whale swims by. I think it's supposed to be beautiful, but I freaked out. And that's where I learned I had a phobia I didn't know about before. I was playing around with this early alpha Vive VR headset, and I was in a game where you had to climb around on platforms and use portals to solve puzzles. And as part of one of the puzzles, a trapdoor opens and a little machine starts shooting a machine gun at you. And so I did what any normal person would do. I ran away because I did not want to get shot by the machine gun. Because my brain had forgotten that I was in an 8x10 room. I ran straight into a desk, hit me right here in my inner thigh, hurt so bad. I can tell you that is probably the most physically painful thing I've ever experienced. I thought I was going to die, and I just sort of buckled over. I took off the headset, and I just sort of lay there going for like 3 minutes or whatever. I don't know. I was alone, so I don't know how long I was there. And I would now like to show you all a magic trick. That didn't hurt me at all. So here's my question, brilliant students. What was the difference? Yeah, I knew that one was there. I could run into those all day. I mean, admittedly, that hurts a tiny bit. This time, as opposed to last time I did this, I took my keys out of my pocket. Yeah, I'm getting smarter, everyone. But yeah, knowing it was there made the world of difference, right? And so we're going to talk about being learning-based, about knowing what threats are in front of you, the landmines, and Becca's going to run the slides. Take that. I'm over my enmity toward the slides. I'm just not going to look at them. So let's jump over here to the 4 levels of competency. This, I think, is freaking brilliant. The 80-20 principle, the Pareto principle, very, very cool. Very cool idea. Kind of a mystery. Like, why does reality work that way? I don't know. It's a little hard to explain. It is easier to see why it works this way, but is absolutely brilliant. So what I'd like, there are 4 people who aren't Becca, and there are 4 levels of competency. So what we're going to do is we're going to go Scarlett, Sam, Lori, Bibiana. I want you all to read me a level of competency. Scarlett, if you start us with 1. Yeah, read number 1, the paragraph here on page 57. I'm sorry, that was not well explained at all. I am a consciously incompetent teacher. Yes, please.
not know what you don't know. For example, if you've never driven a car, you have no idea how complicated it can be.
Brilliant. Sam, go ahead and give us 2.
If you acquire some knowledge, you move to the level 2, conscious and competence. At level 2, you know what you don't know. For example, once you start to drive, you might figure out that parallel parking can be a challenge.
Okay. And then, yeah, Lori, go for it.
If you apply wisdom to your knowledge, you will move to level 3, conscious competence. In our example, this is when you become proficient at parallel parking, though you may have to focus on each step.
Okay, Viviana, take us home.
Over time, with additional practice, your competence becomes a habit and you move to the level 4, unconscious competent. At this level, you could readily parallel park while you're singing along to the radio.
So, slightly related, but I think important is who knows what the Dunning-Kruger effect is? Sam, explain it to us.
Love this concept.
Yes.
And essentially, the more you know about a subject of anything you study, the more you know about it, the less you know you don't know, or you're not, a know-it-all, so to speak. And
Mhm.
so, being in sales, a lot of my life, you get 18-year-olds knocking doors, but they pretend they know everything.
Hmm.
They're clouded, they suck. I love confidence. But when it's confidence that's built off of you don't know anything, it's kind of frustrating. But anyway, so the idea is it's basically the Dunning-Kruger effect is essentially people that assume they know everything about everything without realizing they're really kind of.
Yeah. So essentially, in any field of study, people who know almost nothing about it think they know way more than they do. And people who know a lot about it tend to underestimate their knowledge in it. The joke my dad tells about this is when you get a bachelor's degree, you think you know everything. When you get a master's degree, you realize you don't know anything. And when you get a doctorate, you realize nobody else does either. The Dunning-Kruger effect, it's something I've studied a bit, and I feel like you should read up on it until it scares the snot out of you. If you're not scared by the Dunning-Kruger effect, you don't get it yet. It is a very scary principle. So my question is, and we're just talking about real estate now, even though the 6 personal perspectives, we've stayed very broad on life and it works. How do you know where you are? By definition, you're unconscious of your incompetence. So how do you know? Okay, yeah. Yeah. So there's actually a moderately simple answer to this. And I think For Sale by Owners is an excellent example of the unconscious incompetence. Do you remember when you were bad at the skill set? If not, you still are. And that's glib, but it's correct. And I think there's this thing to be said for natural talent, because natural talent's a real thing. But the thing about natural talent is it's, okay, how close are you to leaving unconscious incompetence? Because yeah, some people are going to be naturally better at salesmanship than others, but ain't nobody's going to keep up with the person who's been making their calls every day, who attends classes every week, who's been studying this. I don't care how talented you are, that person's going to beat you 10 times out of 10. And so this is like, if you didn't realize, like if you don't understand where you're weak, you are still weak. And I'm not saying that as an accusation, that's literally just the first step in the process to learning. The failure rate of new licensees over the first 2 years, it is 90%. I'm not misquoting that, right? It's 87. Okay, it's 5? Okay.
Say failure, what's the metric that they
Sorry, people who don't renew their license. Yeah. Which, you know, maybe that's right for their lives or whatever. But I think there's a massive roadblock here because I've run into this in my professional life, in my artistic life, in everything I do. You start something, and often what'll happen is if you're just bad at it at first and you hate it, you'll just stop doing it. There, boom, done, boop, boop. But you start something like, hey, I'm pretty good at this. I should keep going. And then you're going to bump into something and go, oh, no. And I feel like this is actually a huge roadblock for a lot of people. And that breaks my heart because that literally shows that you're growing. Like when you start to see, oh my gosh, I suck at this. That's awesome. That means you're starting to see and you're starting to grow. Does that make sense? Of course, that doesn't mean you're done. And so you take these areas of weakness, right? You say, oh my goodness, I just realized my buyer consultations are trash or my listing consultations are trash. And then you work on them. So throws at me, I don't have any one correct answer in mind. How do you work on this? You found a weakness in your business. What do you do about it? Go to classes.
Sometimes like you have to find out how you're weak at something. You got to try. You know, that's
Yeah.
That's how I figure out. Okay, this process is different.
There's no replacement for reps, right? For getting practice in. There's a phrase I heard that I really liked from, I don't remember which training it was in, which is we don't practice on our clients. And I do like that. Role plays are tremendously powerful. I had and still have pretty weak listing appointments. And so we did for all of 4 weeks, had listing appointment role plays going at the office. And it was awesome because then you get a couple things. You can get realtors to be way more hostile to you than a client ever would, which is really, really nice because it's better practice. And then who cares if you screw up? They were never going to list with you. They have a license. And so it's fantastic. So I'm a huge proponent of role plays. We are going to jump into this more in number 6 with coaching and mentorship. So I'm not going to dive too much into it right now. But then taking classes is the big thing, which we are going to get into. But there's a couple more I want to explore in this because I think this 4-step progression is absolutely fantastic. So moving from conscious incompetence to conscious competence. So this is, I want to describe this as the roadblock. So the step here is just keep pushing, right? Really just don't give up. When you start to realize you suck, it is one of the worst things that can happen to you emotionally. It's actually a very good thing, but it feels awful. And so the step here is keep going. Don't give up. This is part of growth. The step here is just like Becca said, training. It's like, okay, now I know I'm bad. I need to seek ways to get better. Once you have the training, just as Sam said, there is absolutely no substitute for practice. You can read 1,000 essays on how to throw a basketball, and they will help you, but nothing is going to replace actually throwing the basketball. Any questions or comments here? Because I'm about to open up the matrix, guys.
So for
Yeah. Yeah.
You're right. That is. Oh, I'm not gonna.
Yeah. And to be honest, this is Kevin talking, not Keller Williams' book. I think talent is a sham. Talent gets you to 3% instead of 1%. But the people who make it are the people who are working at it and practicing and training. Talent gets so little of that done for you. It gives you a nice little motivational kick at the start. But you look at like, oh, Becca Summers is so amazing. I hate her. She's there because she worked for it. Yeah, putz. Yeah, you putz. All right. Sorry, I just have a funny joke that I'm going to refine and do next time I teach this. Okay. Any other questions or thoughts on this? Does this 4-step progression make sense? Okay, so what I want to show you, and what I think the book doesn't cover adequately, is all of this is then also the next layer of unconscious incompetence. Unless you honestly want to tell me you've attained, I am the perfect realtor, there is always more to go. And so once you've mastered this principle, something else is going to happen and you go, oh my gosh, I still suck. And even though you've gone through all this, you can go, oh my goodness, I still suck. This feels so bad. Maybe I was bad all along. You're going to have imposter syndrome. You've been practicing for 5, 10, 20 years. And you're like, oh no, was I bad all along? No, this means you are growing again. This is good news. Keep pushing and then train, practice, and it's going to happen again. And until you are actually literally perfect at your practice, this is going to keep happening. It's cyclical and it's awesome because it is growth. Lori.
That if we don't shift with it, we're going to be back totally unconscious of how to do the next one.
So for sure. So I've been practicing for, oh my gosh, 9 years. Oh my gosh. So this is as a child of summer, this was really my first market shift, and it does feel like I'm learning a new job, and I hate it. And definitely I'm right here. And so my assumption is that if we go back to a seller's market, I'm like, oh, all those skills I acquired between 2014 and 2022-ish. But I don't know. I haven't. Yeah. That's fair. And so is it 2 skill sets? Is it an ever growing number of skill? I don't know. I actually can't give personal attestment to that. But yeah, I do think market shifts are going to do a lot of that. And Becca made a comment that was salient before, that the market dropped 30%. I think every realtor right now, except Jared Fields, is dealing with imposter syndrome. Sorry, I genuinely like Jared, but he's got quite an ego. He is an enormously successful realtor. And he definitely likes himself. He's okay. He's not worried about his incompetence. Or maybe in the dark shadows of the night, he cries into his pillow thinking, am I who I claim to be? I like him enough that I think I'm allowed to say that. There are other realtors that I have a lot of spite about that I won't make those jokes about. The Keller Williams curriculum, learning for earning's sake. Shoni says something that drives me absolutely batty, even if I think it's semi-fair, is that information without application is entertainment. Screw that. Curiosity for its own sake is a human virtue. Screw that noise. However, for your career, he's largely correct. Oh, that was interesting. Becca said training. How do you get training? How do we find classes? Let's find out together. I asked Hunter on the WhatsApp how to find the calendar for getting new classes, and he sent me a link with the most insane URL I've ever seen. Is that somewhere non-insane, Becca? Do you know?
Yeah, it's not the
Explain. Is it an announcement? Are you all on the WhatsApp? That should be my first question. Let's get you all on the WhatsApp quick. Am I able to add people to WhatsApp?
Really easy training still talks about daily services, stuff like that.
Oh, Slack.
Yes. It's all about Slack. That's very smart. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, and check again in 3 months. It'll be something else. You gotta be agile in this business. I think we stopped saying we're a tech company though, so I'm glad about that. What, yeah,
So this is when, so as they update, as they have it here, so you can represent.
how dare you? Yeah, I also don't see it on WhatsApp, but she is writing down the URL, so you can bookmark this in your phone's browser. And I'm gonna try and get Hunter to add it to its own group in WhatsApp because it should be there. Hey, can you make it its own group so it just stays there statically? Hunter can. Actually, I'll talk to him after this. At 1 p.m., remind me to get Hunter to put the flow chart, flow page thing in WhatsApp in its own static group. No. URLs are caps agnostic. So there's, I do want to go through these courses real quick. When I first started, I didn't care about a lot of these, and then I kind of hit a wall in my career where I suddenly cared about these a lot. And so mainly I want you to be aware that these exist and care about them to the level that you care right now. I also, sorry, how long have you been practicing? What's your story, Scarlett? Let's get to know you. Fantastic. I wasn't going to ask because you did say took your test. It's like, don't ask, don't ask, don't ask. Okay, well, welcome aboard. Are we aware of Ignite? Okay, cool. And we're attending. Okay, that's the main thing to be doing right now. Ignite is a fantastic resource for new agents. I teach one of the classes in it sometimes, although maybe I got booted by not teaching it this last time. It's a very tenuous, I have a tenuous grasp on teaching Ignite. But I'm sorry, my wife was having a baby. But that's excuses. You can have reasons or results. That's Ignite's motto. Okay, so okay, then yeah, I don't think I'm going to get too into the weeds on this because Lori, you have Becca. Are either of you on Teams? But you didn't have like an agent bring you on saying, you're going to join my team. Okay, cool. Okay. Cool. Then I think actually we're going to go ahead and jump over the next several pages. If you want to glance through those, it is worth knowing that Keller Williams does have sort of these career paths you can go on. And it's like, here's how to, if you want to grow, the profit share tree is the, for lack of a better term, the MLM aspects of our company, where it's like, bring on an agent, and then when they make a closing, you get a tiny little bite. I think maybe 2 people have made a career out of that. Good job. It is theoretically a viable career path, and for most of us, it's a nice little bonus. I brought on Taylor Frampton, so I make a cool $600 a year. Okay, but here's something I absolutely do want you to know. Go to page 69. Nice. These are books. If Keller Williams has textbooks, then these are they. Do you have a copy of The Millionaire Real Estate Agent? Okay, Johnny. Oh, I should get it on Audible. Johnny gave me a copy when I was interviewing brokerages. Here's the deal. Here's my Keller Williams conversion story. We went to our family realtor, who is a broker who owns his own brokerage. And I said, hey, I want to get in real estate. Where should I go? He said, go to Keller Williams. So like, that's weird. You're not a Keller Williams agent. She's like, yeah, I think in hindsight, I wonder about that conversation a lot. And I wonder if he just didn't want to deal with me. But Keller Williams being endorsed by a non-Keller agent was a very strong endorsement. And so I talked to Johnny, and he said, "What other places are you interviewing?" I was like, "Of course I'm interviewing other places. I wouldn't just come here. That would be stupid." And so I talked to Osmond Real Estate, who went under. Their building went to somebody else. So, and they actually seemed like really nice guys, but I knew I was coming here. Johnny gave me the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, read it, didn't understand a word of it. However, now that I'm in the business, I think it's wonderful. So that is definitely a good read, but it might be a little thick as you're starting. If you're like me, you're going to find it a little dense as you get in at first. But really, most of the principles we teach, if not all of them, are in that book. And then Shift is a good one. It's mainly focused on agents who are accustomed to working in one market and moving into another. But since we are moving into a challenging market, I think this is a good one here. And then all of these I endorse. The one thing is talking about principles we talked about in the 80-20 and principally the 80-20. But all of these books, yum, 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 yum. Flip and hold, wait till you're good at the other stuff. Unless you're really interested in those topics, I guess. Yeah, no, let's talk about it. You have access to KW Connect. It is a library of many, many videos of a wide spectrum of quality. And I mean that not just to be mean. Some of them are terrible, but a lot of them are really, really great. And they will cover any topic you can fathom wanting to know about in Keller Williams. Do you know Hunter Shinicki? Okay. He can definitely guide you through the process of getting to these things better than I am able to do in this context right here. If I'm in this building, I can help you with it. If I'm not actively teaching a class, which sadly I am right now. Coaching is another thing I want you to be aware of. Coaching is enormously powerful. The mega agents I know, almost all of them have at some point used a coach, and coaching is enormously powerful. It's very expensive, so it might not be the right thing to start with unless you can afford it. If you can't afford it, it will definitely return on the dividends. Return on the dividends, ugh. Planning your learning path. We're now on page 73. I think this activity is of very limited use, but what I would like you to do is set a learning goal, which is to say, you know that you need to do CEs to renew your license, and so that's something you have to do, or you're just guaranteed to drop out at your 2-year mark. But I think what I did when I first started is I said I want to attend some kind of training every week. I don't count team meeting, although team meeting is good. But I think it would be good to set a goal, and you can write it here, of like, I'm going to attend a training, or I want to be a master of listing appointments, or something like that, that you will then set a specific, achievable, executable goal here. I'm totally throwing this activity in the garbage and telling you just set a simple training goal that you write down here. And I'll give you like 2 minutes, and if you want to talk about it, we definitely can. My favorite section is section 4, because I throw Keller Williams under the bus 3 or 4 times during it. I forgot her name. That teacher we really liked, Juanette. If she was here, she'd probably shoot me in the face. I mean, she's from Texas, so you know she has a gun. They're like, no, stop. I'm surprised Dean hasn't cut off my mic yet. Oh, phew, all right, phew, I'm safe. Sometimes, especially because you don't know me that well, I do tend to poke and jab at Keller Williams. But to be clear, I've been here for 9 years, and I'm aware I can leave at any time. I do like being here. I also like poking fun at the weird stuff we do here. So just want to make my disposition clear there. Any ahas from this section? Or would anyone like to share their learning plan? I actually do like those, even though I had that activity just thrown in the fire.
So the learning path you like to do?
Yeah.
So The reason why I like Audible so much is I can listen to while I'm exercising, when I'm cleaning,
Mhm.
when I'm, doing whatever I'm doing. I like being advantageous to that. So for me, all those books that we had just listed prior to that, I made a goal to, for me, 2 weeks. 1 week, I think it's great. I think we can definitely do that, but within 2 weeks, it's
Sick. I love that. Okay. Anyone else want to share a learning plan or an aha or want to throw something at me or run into the table? It's pretty fun.
I did have a VR experience. A little older, I actually played the virtual. Virtual.
Yeah. I actually had one as a kid. Yeah.
So there's my VR experience. Not very mobile, obviously, but it was
I played the tennis game, and then there was like a spaceship game where you're flying down a corridor. I don't remember a lot about.
it didn't have a lot.
I wasn't. Apparently, a lot of people got like very sick
Yeah.
from playing it. I wasn't one of those. I was
so
lucky.
brother still like very limited how I could play it, but yeah, it's all rad.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
I said it.
Oh, right.
All right. So we have made it to step number 5. So you're almost done. You've almost survived. Step 5 in this process is removing limiting beliefs. So I'm going to share my one of my big stories that was well, before I go there. So a limiting belief is something that you have put on yourself, or society has put it on you, or just in general, something that you're like, I can't do X because of Y. This is essentially what a limiting belief is. And as we talked about in competent, what's the word? Incompetent, in unconscious incompetence, there's a lot of it that you're going to hit in real estate because there's so much to learn and grow and do. But you have to be able to remove those limiting beliefs or you'll get stuck at that ceiling and bounce right back down. So if we, the events supplement curriculum that Kevin talked about, there's 3 major events that Keller Williams does. Family Reunion, it's every February, Mega Camp every August, and then Masterminds are spring and fall. They just kind of change. And they're different locations. And so I had, again, with being learning based, there's only so much the office can do. Like the office is great, but once you hit a certain level, you have to go past the office. And I think that's where a lot of agents fail in this business is they think the office will provide everything for them. And when they're not getting what they need from the office, they're like, well, I'm out. And they go to another office and have the same problems. But Keller Williams has progression beyond just your office, which is what I love about it. It's not just I'm best buds with my broker. We get to hang out. He answers my questions. There's so much more. So I'd gotten to the point, I graduated Ignite. I had done all the classes on this list. Like we at an office level teach Win the Seller, Win the Buyer, and they're taught by top producing agents. Quantum Leap is tomorrow. Super amazing class. I think it's online. Career Visioning is how to build a business, hiring people. But Quantum Leap? No, it's Jordan. So Quantum Leap is one that you have to be accredited to teach. Like it's much more complicated, but there's so much. So I got to the level that I was like, I'm doing great, hit another roadblock, went back to incompetence, and I went to what's called Masterminds. So I went to one in Washington, D.C., and it was super cool. And about me, I started in real estate when I had a almost 3-year-old and a 9-month-old. So like super young. And I'm looking around me, I'm like, there's no one with little kids this successful. Like, what is going on? Maybe it's not possible. And so I went to this mastermind, and as part of it, they have coaches there that you can do like one-on-one coaching with MAPS coaching. And I sat down with this coach and I said, hey, I always get teary because it was such a pivotal moment in my life. So I sat down with him. I'm like, hey, I love real estate. This is fantastic. changed my life at this point. And at that point I'd sold 7 or 8 million in real estate. So a good amount of like yearly was my numbers. So a good amount, but I wasn't doing it full time. Like my husband still had a job. So I was the primary caregiver of our kids. And at this point I had 4 kids and I actually had a nursing baby at that conference. So like totally different from everyone else. And I'm sitting here with a complete stranger. I'm like, I love it. I really want to do it, but it's so hard with my little kids. I was gonna say I'm not gonna cry, but obviously here I am. And like he said nothing. Like there was no magical thing he said, but in the moment, telling this complete stranger who knows to ask good questions, my struggles, I realized it wasn't my husband putting this on me. It wasn't, because my husband's super supportive. So it was the conditioning. We're growing up in Utah. I thought I needed to be a stay-at-home mom. I needed to not do this at the level I do it. And I realized that that was my limiting belief. I did it to myself. I thought because all growing up it was, I'm going to stay home with my kids. I'm going to raise them. I'm going to love it. And I didn't love it. And that's actually why I got into real estate. I got bored. I miss people. And so I was selling a good amount of real estate. And I told this stranger my struggles. And I realized if I want to do more, I can. It's my choice. It's not someone else telling me that I can't. And so after that, I hired coaching, which it's $1,000 a month for coaching. It is not cheap. I sold a rental property to cover the coaching as I decided to be fully committed. So I had a rental property that my lease was coming up and I sold it. And by the time I had actually sold it, because you know how long it takes to sell houses, I had made more than enough to pay for my coaching for the full year. So I didn't even have to use that money from selling the house to do that. I also went through the process of hiring a nanny to live with us in our house to help with the kids from 9 to 5. So I could be more here and more committed. And that year I doubled my production to 14 million from going through that process of removing that limit. So, sorry, super personal. But it was, and you'll see it over and over. Kevin was joking that people hate me because I'm super talented. I actually consider myself not talented. Okay. But it's really funny that you say that because I really I see other agents and I have that feeling where I'm like, oh, they're super talented and they're super successful and I'm not. And I had to take these systems and these processes and plug them into my life. And yeah, so there's my, someday I will tell it without crying, but obviously it still matters a lot because it changed the trajectory of our career. Since then, and that was 2018. In 2020, my husband left his corporate job to work with me. And so now he gets to be with the kids more. He gets to go to their games and their activities. And that was a huge priority for him. Like he would take his lunch break to go to their basketball game because they work 12-hour shifts. Anyway, so it changed my life. So I am way too emotional about it. But I want to help you guys understand the process to do it. So the process that I just explained is I realized I went to a coach and the coach asked good questions. And when you go to coaching, it's super weird because they just ask you questions because ultimately you know what the answer is to your problems. Most of the time we don't want to admit it. So I knew that I wasn't giving it enough time and I wasn't because I had kids and I looked around and no one else had done it. So how do I duplicate when no one else had done it? And as you know, but no one in this market center had done it, but people outside this market center had done it. So what did they do? And learning from their process. So the exercise on page 81 talks about pairing up with a new partner, but again, we're a small group, so we'll all just work together. So take a minute to think about, going back, process of removing limiting beliefs. Think of a time in your life when you had a limiting belief that you needed to be removed. How did you do it? And what new success system came your way once you removed that belief? So I'll walk through mine again just to kind of show you how that happened. So in my life, I loved real estate. My limiting belief was that as a mom in Utah, that was a bad idea. How did I do it? I reached out to someone else. I had a coaching conversation that was an hour long, and like I was bawling to this stranger. It was weird. And what new success systems did I implement in my life? So I hired a nanny. So it wasn't a stress to my husband or I. During the summer before we had the nanny, I had a summer nanny that was like a teenage girl in my neighborhood. And then I hired coaching itself to continue working through the limiting beliefs. So I want you to think of a time that you have had a limiting belief that has held you back. And I want this to be real estate related. Get a little, because I don't want to get personal on other stuff. Real estate's less personal. And I want you to, this one wants you to think about a limiting belief that you've overcome and then talk about it with your partner, then switch roles and talk about it again. And then how to add it to your 411. So yeah, on part 1, write down a limiting belief that you've overcome or one that you need to overcome. And then with the people at your table, so I'll have you go with Bibiana, I want you to talk about, because like talking with that guy was super helpful because he didn't have to say anything. It was totally me, but talking with someone else makes you verbalize it and get it out. So yeah, so write down your limiting belief and then chat with your partner about what it is and potential ways to remove it. Good time. So much judgment on myself for that. I think that's why it's still hard. Yeah. We are doing awesome time. We're gonna end early. I agree. Yeah. It's a concept, it's easy, but like what tools can you? Yeah. The tool. Yeah. Yeah. It's literally like 3 pages.
I love how they're like, it's like new systems.
Yeah. Okay.
My ahas, I should use system.
Yeah. The thing that always surprises me when we do this class is how many of these things I use in my life. I'm like, oh, that's where I learned it.
Yeah, I like it.
A lot of people are like, oh, how do you do all the things you do? And I'm like, I just went to all these classes. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
so in the past, so
Okay, so you ladies in the back are done? This row almost done? Okay, we'll give a couple more minutes.
so I'm like
All right, so I'm gonna wrap it up. You're good. You're good. So the point of this exercise is to really like get out the issue you're having, tell someone else about it, and just having a listening ear. And you have a lot of people available to you. Being newer, I'd recommend you find a mentor because the office has lots of opportunities, but also there's 330 of us, so they can only do so much. So find another agent who's top producing, and just when you have questions, they're a great resource to go to. And ahas from that section of removing your limiting beliefs. Yes.
I like having past experience, right? So first, like you had similar or other concerns were able to come how to do that. So that really had me to think about, okay, what's my current situation, how can the past apply to today? And I thought that was
Yeah, because you've done it before, and you just do it over and over and over and over. Okay, so last section, be accountable.
I meant to grab this before, but I was distracted, not the mic. This thing here. Yeah. The first time I taught this class, I got these and I very aesthetically laid them out using 6 chairs. And then 3 people came to the class. I went, eh. I think this one's neat. Okay, so we're not going to go over this in great detail, but I wanted to put it here because I want to showcase it because I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting. Let's talk about accountability. On page 87, the quote says, "Everything in my life is a result of my choices and actions. I own my life." I think there are 2 toxic belief systems that pervade every part of Western culture. One is that we're all victims of circumstance. Where it's like, oh, well, the conditions of your birth and your natural abilities or whatever, or the government or capitalism or whatever they hate today, whatever drives clicks, honestly, or gets votes or gets you to buy their product, that's keeping you down. Nothing you can do about it. Poor you, because pathos sells. 2 things sell, and one of them is pathos. And then the other one, I have a very cool name for. The delusion of control. Which is, if you just knuckle under and do it, then you can be a billionaire like Elon Musk, because Elon Musk had no natural advantages going in. Don't research his family. Don't look at how lucky he got with some of his early acquisitions. It was all his skill and talent. Both of these are toxic, stupid ways of looking at the world. However, one of these will make you a paralyzed, gibbering mess of nothingness. And one of them, admittedly, at least asks you to put out some effort. One thing I want to step in front of, and I'm not disagreeing with the book here. I just think the book leaves some ambiguity that I want to step on its throat because I think it's dangerous. Accountability is not saying that if you do X, Y will always happen. Accountability means identifying the parts of your life that you can control and controlling them. This is way harder than it sounds. It is so easy. It is a drug to say, oh, the market is turning, that's why I'm not selling homes. You know what? That is partially true. But if you let that narcotic get into your brain, it will kill your career so fast. And the real problem with it is partially true. Less people are looking to sell their house. Less people, my wife would kill me for that. Fewer people are looking to sell their house. Fewer people are looking to buy houses. But that doesn't mean you can't make a career in real estate, and I can prove it. A bunch of people are doing it right now. It can be done, and you have every skill you need to do it. So accountability means correctly assessing what can I control and taking control of it, and what can I not control and preparing for it. Is that clear? I don't think that is explained adequately in the book, which is why I want to jump right in front of that. Okay, so we have an activity on page 89. And this is why I gave this part first, is because I think the activity on page 89 is worded in such a way where you can blame yourself for things that are literally not your fault. Becca covered a lot of this really well with her talk about mentorship. And frankly, we're going to get into mentorship. That's the whole second half of this section. But the other problem I have with this activity is it can lead to a little bit of insincerity, but we're going to try it anyway. Okay. And if you just, I asked for 30% vulnerability before. We've done a good job. There's only 6 of us in the room. I'm going to ask dial it up to 45% vulnerability. Okay. You don't need to tell us about your actual narcotic addiction unless you want to. If you're feeling safe for that, more power to you. But let's pair off again. Let's go Scarlett with Bibiana and Lori with Sam. And then Becca and I will do a tap dance in the front for your amusement. And what I want you to do is before you pair off, I want you to take I'm going to give you 2.5 minutes, and I want you to think of a roadblock you're having right now in regards to achieving the goal you wrote down earlier. Or if that's too personal, back it off and a roadblock to achieving a career goal, because that should not be too personal. And if it is, I'm not sure what to tell you. Come up with a less personal roadblock. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes and 30 seconds as soon as I get my timer running correctly. Yes. And then we're going to give major surgery to this activity to make it, I think, way more effective. How much time do we have? Okay. We're definitely going to get out of here on time. I don't know about getting out early. Need something for your reference. It looks like you're all pairing off, so I'm going to kill my timer. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, I want this to be sort of interactive. I don't want to take turns necessarily, but I want you each to share your problem with each other. And then with the other person, I want you to identify and write down what aspects of this problem are in your control, what aspects of this problem are out of your control. How do you take control of the things that are in your control? How do you prepare for the things that are not? This is not enough time, but I'm going to give you 7 minutes. Good luck. I love you. I mean, I am doing the weight loss thing again. And I've gotten better because I was like doing keto for like 3 weeks. And I think the problem is I keep making excuses for myself because I'm so bloody tired all the time. And I'm like, well, I'm tired. I can have ice cream. Um, and I noticed I got a lot worse as soon as I got rid of my nutritionist. Like I finished my 3 week or my 3 month thing with her, and not giving someone my blood every week definitely reduces my commitment. What are you struggling with? Because I have these ideas like, oh, I'm very hard on it. Yeah, but, I mean, sometimes not. I mean, some, and so it's like, well, like, you must not be forgetting me. Here's the thing where like, when I think about work, how it's find out these things. That was you. You know, even like, not all, you know, the power people to the problem. And so, you know, when I think by nature, it's stuff that like people joke about, and it's like that uncomfortable area of society. Like, I don't think people really appreciate how deep we are. Like, oh, Spike! Yep. I've watched a lot of Bob. I tried telling myself I was right. Yeah. And that was terrible. Because I felt like what to do. If I hadn't signed up to be a leadership, all right, wrap it up, you nerds. In case we forget that the microphone is live, every time I touch it, it goes. All right, comrades, how did it go? That was the test drive of this activity. Oh, Scarlett is telling a very involved story with her hands. I don't want to interrupt. It really looks like she's knocking it out of the park. This was that activity's maiden voyage, or really that version of it. How was it? How did it go? What insights are you willing to share with the other 4 people in the room? Yeah, Bibiana. Okay. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Any other thoughts? So what I hope this illustrated was that having a second set of eyes on the problem is immensely powerful, because this whole idea of identifying what do I control, what do I not control, is so simple on paper and so massively complex in practice. Because there's stuff in business practice. There's like, this week I'm going to get 3 listing appointments. Well, I definitely control how many calls I make. Do I control how many people say yes? Kind of, like, sort of. It's actually a more complicated question than that, right? There's the quality of your scripts, the quantity and quality of your calls. But you're right. Obviously, I don't control what answer or what their needs are, and so it's not this simple. I control what they say or how many appointments I get. Like, you do and you don't, and so. One thing that I think gives massive clarity is just getting a second brain working on the problem, especially someone who is emotionally detached from the problem. I have found that my wife loves me more than anyone else in this whole world, and she is the worst accountability partner you can imagine. I have tried to have her as a fitness accountability partner many times. Like, Roz, don't let me have chocolate. And I'm like, oh, I've had such a hard day. She's like, yeah, just have the chocolate. It's like, stop loving me. And that's where I've come to understand the value in a coach. And please hear this in the right way. A coach that doesn't care about you, or a coach that doesn't love you. for lack of a better term. Like sure, a coach doesn't enable you. That's better because look, I'm willing to believe that out there is a spouse who actually is a great fitness accountability partner who's like, don't have enough chocolate. Your larger goals are more important than your short-term goals. But that was not part of our marriage contract. And so I do think if you call up your mom and you're like, Mom, hold me accountable, maybe that'll work in your individual situation. But if I were betting hard money on it, I'd say probably not. And so I'm not necessarily saying go hire a professional coach, although if you can afford that, the return is almost always incredible. But let's go to page 91. 91, it clarifies nothing. Let's go to page 93. So the book has identified 4 areas of life where you could potentially improve on yourself. Let's talk about each area real quickly. Financial, that can be there's a couple things I can see that mean. That could be like, oh, how am I managing my investments? This is my financial fitness. Shoni does coaching with that. I don't know if does he charge for that or does he just do that with agents? I don't know what his deal is with that. Okay, it's actually unclear to me. Sorry, Shoni being our team leader here at Keller Williams. But that could be one of the things like, how am I managing the money that I do have? And then one obvious application of financial is income, like how many houses am I selling? However, that could also easily slide under business, which is how many leads am I bringing in? Becca talked about this sort of business versus job. And so business could be how well am I servicing my clients, or it could be how well am I bringing in leads. I find these categories a tiny bit ambiguous, and I like them like that because that is how you can make sure that they are what you need in your life. The adaptability of this course is one of its strengths. Does that make sense, or am I just rambling? You're like, oh no, the avalanche of Kevin's words. Why? Physical, I admit, I don't see 2 ways around that one. It's just taking care of your body. We're all adults. We all probably hate our bodies in different ways. So, and then spiritual, again, if you're religious, that could mean whatever that means in terms of your religious standing, or just your ability to feel peace when you are alone with your thoughts. I think spiritual is also a widely variable category. So what I want you to think about for a couple minutes here is someone you admire in each of these categories. So define what it means to you. Like financial to me means someone who's managing their investments wisely, or someone who's bringing in a lot of income, and then someone you admire in that category, and then ideally someone that you could comfortably go get lunch with. Do that for all 4 categories. I command you. My favorite part of the class was where Kevin yelled, I command you. Oh, there's a couple reasons that's going to happen. You know, they're flush with teachers who are champing at the bit to teach these courses. They're spoiled for choice. We're going to get to that in a second. How's everyone doing? Are people still going? Let's go for another minute or two. All right. So the idea here, as you may have anticipated, is we're looking for people to mentor us in these areas. One thing that I want to point out, this doesn't necessarily have to be a formal arrangement. Typically, the people who are very good at these mentorship arrangements will charge you money for them. And that's great, good for you and for them if that works out. But this can be as simple as a friend that you go out to lunch with once a quarter or something like that, and you talk about finances or fitness or whatever. Going out to lunch, talk about fitness, it can work. Yeah, it can work. So this ad buy is specifically, I want you to have a conversation with these 4 people about, can you hold me accountable to X? And here's where I want to get crazy with you. You know your relationships with these people, you know what dates are reasonable to put in there, right? If the date is more than 3 months out, probably that's not the right person, and you should reassess who you've put there and see if you can find someone else that you have better access to. But my challenge to you is put one of these dates within 10 days, that you'll have a conversation with that person about that topic and ask if they're willing to hold you accountable to some sort of goal. And you do that before September 23rd. By the way, if it feels arbitrary, because these are people you talk to all the time, just put October 1st. Don't overthink this part of it. One thing that can be really powerful in these is you may also be able to hold them accountable to stuff. And then they can say, oh yeah, then you can, like with fitness, there's often like accountability partnerships. And then at the brokerage, there frequently accountability partnerships will form among people who aren't on teams, where it's like, hey, I need to make sure that I'm making, 50 calls a week or whatever it is. And then you get together once a week, you say, hey, did you make your calls? No, you suck. No, you suck. Accountability. And so I strongly recommend in your real estate career, if you're not on a team, find an accountability partner. I really think that's the difference between living and dying, is accountability in real estate. If you need help doing that, come to team meeting, talk to people, make friends. Team meetings at 11 o'clock on Tuesdays in this room. Okay, the cabin. Yeah. Yeah.
You're 0 in my financial and business.
No, that's not sad. That's actually fairly normal.
Serving with somebody that I can talk to, because the one person I know in proximity, close proximity, he's very, very wealthy, but every time I've asked him to speak to me.
Yeah.
I'm like,
That's fair. Do you read the booklets? Oh, that's fair. That's okay. So I have two splintering thoughts. First, you could try reading the booklet and come back and say, hey, I read the booklet. I had these thoughts about it. And that might show him like, oh, you're the real deal. Let's talk. Or it is possible you're right, and he's just brushing you off, and he's not the right person for the job. One thing I've noticed about the wealthy is they tend to be very good at protecting their time. And it's generally not like a personal assault on you. But typically, the higher someone rises in prominence, the more demands on their time are presented and the more aggressively they'll defend it. And so, like, just if you demonstrate, hey, I read this booklet, I had these thoughts, can we talk about it over lunch or something? That might be enough to be like, oh, Scarlett's the real deal. Oh, but he doesn't want to talk about finances. All right, well. Okay, let's follow the other chain of thought then. First of all, for finances and business, are we talking business like real estate generating leads, finances like managing your money? Okay, what I'd love you to do then is make an appointment to see Shoni. Have you met Shoni? Do you know who he is? Perfect. Okay, so he's a team leader. Fantastic. Really easy to talk to. And I know at least once he'll talk to you about it for free. I think he does those consultations for free. I'm not 100% sure.
If you want to spend 250 or whatever it was for coaching, and then I went one time, and then I was scared to message him because I thought, I have to pay to even talk to him.
Oh, that's a.
I don't. But Parker, I don't know if you guys know Parker. He's new here and he's redhead, and he said, "Oh, Shoni showed me, what my day and week look like, and he helped me put together a business plan and blah blah blah." And I said,
Yeah.
"Did you pay for that?" He said, "No."
He's done that for me also with no charge. So let's yeah, try it. It sounds, I'm not sure what they meant by that. But if you're just very clear and say, I'm not looking for paid coaching, and then the worst thing he can say is no, and then come back and I'll help you as best I can. I mean, you do not want financial advice from me, just to be clear, but I'll try and find someone else who can help you. And then in terms of business, how many people are going to Ignite right now? I'm so sorry. When you go, how many people are in the room with you? Okay. So honestly, the strongest thing I think you can do is you could like even use each other or grab someone else in the room that you really connect with, and that's your accountability partner. Say, hey, we meet every week, Monday at 10 a.m. or whatever works for your schedules, and set goals about, there should always be a prospecting related goal, and then any other goals that are significant to you. Like I want to practice writing 3 contracts, or I want to get 5 listing appointments, whatever makes sense to you. If you start doing that, I will happily attend a couple and give advice how I can. I am reasonably good. I have a lot of experience with those. And so I can help if you want help. They're going to be personal, and what's going to work for you might not be what worked for me. And then, yeah, for the finances thing, just set up an appointment with Shoni. And if that doesn't work, let's make sure that you have a means to reach out to at least me before you leave the room. Cool. Any other questions on this? Cool cheese. So we're going to go to page 95. This gives you a model for how to do accountability sessions. Again, these are going to be, I'm going to pull a number out of my butt, 1,000 million times more powerful if you do them with another person. You can tell I heavily researched that number. But you can also do them with yourself. What was your goal? How did you do? How did you feel about that? Really dig into that. Emotions are what are going to drive you to actually do things. You can logic yourself right out of a career. Believe me. But emotions are going to drive you to actually taking action. So if you feel bad about something, sit with that for a minute, let that drive you. If you feel great about something, sit with that, let it drive you. Based on how you did, what is your goal and what do you need to do now? It's really, accountability can really be that simple. And if you do accountability, I think you're going to do great as realtors. And if you don't, I am very confident you're going to burn. And I say that with love. Ahas. try it in any cool random self-help book quotes at the end of this one. If you account, your account will grow. Bank account? Cool. Ahas.
That was the thing. So it's just like, what? It's sort of, wow.
Love it. All right. Who's going to have someone holding them accountable within the next 10 days? Someone new holding them accountable within the next 10 days. Good job, everyone. I love you all with my entire heart. Did they write down an activity at the end of each chapter? So let's just quietly skip that and not mention it. No.
This is the ending of your class type of content. So going to a class and not doing anything afterwards is a huge waste of your time. You need to add action to what you're doing. And implementation is probably why most people fail, because you get all these great ideas and you're like, I'm going to succeed. And then we don't implement and you just spent 3 hours. I mean, had some good stories, had some fun. So on page 101, it has your ahas. So as you've gone through, if you wrote them down, you can add them here. So then you have kind of a 1-page reference to come back and look at. Behaviors that you intend to change. We just went through 6 different things that you can do that are all behavioral to change. Tools, what tools are you going to implement from this session? What new thing did you learn about that you're like, yes, that is the answer to my struggles? Accountability, kind of like Kevin talked about. Where are you going to add accountability into your business? How can you add it? Who can you talk to? And the achievement, the actual goal of all of it is, what do you intend to achieve from taking this class? Because if not, I enjoyed the time, but we want you to go out, take action, and be successful. And then this last little thing is an evaluation. Kevin and I are technically working on being KW instructors, so we can teach Quantum Leap someday. So you do the evaluation, except instead of Shoni, right, Kevin and Becca, so do 2. And then the class is called 6 Personal Perspectives. And our name is not in the drop down, so you have to just type it in other, because we're not even that quick. See. There we go. And thanks for coming.
Well, the thoughts on Ignite, it's kind of interesting since, you know, it's not like, hey,